Hello everyone and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol Battle Report. Today for you we have 17 threats, so a standard sized game between the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Brotherhood of Mutants, specifically in the Freedom Force setup. You can already see we have the table ready to go with objectives, etc. But first of all, thank you very much for support on the series. Please do continue to show it if you want to see more. And with that said, we are ready to jump in and take a look at both sides. Behold your Guardians of the Etceteras. So this is the Guardians of the Galaxy setup, a little bit less conventional than usual. In brackets, that just means no Rocket and Groot. So we have Star-Lord, we have Gamora, we have Nebula, who can't control or contest, but will do extra damage against people who are controlling or contesting. We have Drax, and then we have Ronin, and Ronin has the power gems, so he'll be getting, well, he gets 1 power normally, 1 power for having an Infinity Stone, and then the Power Stone gives him 1 on top of that, so he'll be generating 3 in the power phase, which is pretty good. And their tactics cards are Lovable Misfits, Extreme Conditioning, Reversal, Medpack, and Crew of the Milano. And the Brotherhood of Mutants this time are being led by Mystique, hence them being the Freedom Force setup as opposed to just the normal Brotherhood with Magneto. Magneto's leadership ability is obviously really good, so Mystique, we're just going to give it a go today, see how it is. Once per character's turn, if they have interacted with a extract objective, which for this one, as we'll see in a second, is the cube fragments, they gain an additional power after everything else is resolved, and they can also claim an objective without having to stay near it for the secures. But we'll see more about that as we play. Anyway, Mystique is the leader. She brought Toad and Sabretooth, which makes them Brotherhood affiliation because 3 versus 2 models, and then just to keep it in mutant, we also have Cyclops and Wolverine. Oh, and their tactics cards, of course. The Book of Truth, Deception, Asteroid M, Weapon X Program, and Exceptional Healing. So as previously just stated, the extraction is the 5 cube fragments on the map. You gain 1 victory point for everyone you're holding in the cleanup phase. In the power phase, you gain, you take 1 damage, but you also gain power. So one way or another, people are going to be getting damaged. And then the secure is just the Cosmic Invasion Black Order descends on Earth, so there's Cosmic Vaults, 4 of them. You score 1 for each you are securing during the cleanup phase, and then in the power phase you roll a die, get a crit in a wild, you gain 2 power and are pushed back small. So the 5 cube fragments, smack dab in the middle of the map, and then on each of the corners behind the statue there, and then the 4 vaults, 1 close to each deployment side, and then 1 on either side of the map. So a lot of victory points up for grabs in this game. So we'll roll off to see who goes on which side and be back at deployment. So both sides are set up and raring to go. The Guardians are set up to your left and the Brotherhood are set up on the right, and it is the Brotherhood going first. Let's take a look at the deployment line for the Guardians though. So we have Ronin, we have Gamora, then we have Star-Lord right next to Nebula and Drax over there. And if we come over here, Wolverine just got out his car and he's very cross, so he's standing on top of it and screaming. And then over here the rest of them have kind of deployed quite close together. So we have Sabretooth, Mystique, Cyclops, and right up at the top there is Toad. So with that, we are ready to jump into Battle Round 1 and get this game started. So it was Sabretooth that got the round started, and he moves long. One long move was not enough to get to the middle cube fragment though, so he did have to kind of move in a half to get barely within 1. He spent his 1 power to pick it up, and then via the Freedom Force affiliation, well, it's Brotherhood but Freedom Force version of it, he basically gets a refund on that instantly as soon as the interact is resolved, so he didn't really spend anything. Does put him precariously in the middle of the map, but when you're playing the cube objective card, it does usually come down to who's got that 5th cube fragment for the swing early on. Star-Lord was the first up for the Guardian side. He moved medium once to put him on the far side, but still within 1 of that Cosmic Vault, so he is going to be securing it for the cleanup phase. Then he fired his full auto, sorry, not full auto, just fired his element guns. Full auto is his best attack against Sabretooth, and uncharacteristically rolled very well. And Sabretooth did not do too well with his energy defense roll, and he took 3 damage of his, I think his 6 on his healthy side. Let's see, he does have 6 on his healthy side, so he's at half health. I don't think anyone else can get to him though, so I don't think he's going to drop the cube this turn. But he is obviously hurting, and the cube will hurt him as well, and because he's had his turn, his healing factor will not help him this turn either. Toad was next up for the Brotherhood, and thanks to his prehensile tongue, he can interact with objectives from 2 away rather than 1. So he didn't do a full move to get close to the cube fragment that had been there. He spent his 1 power to pick it up, and then he moved medium again to secure this back vault. although eventually it'll probably be getting a secure token put on it by Mystique's leadership ability, but more about that when it happens. Nebula activated and moved forwards long, and then from there she was within range 3 to fire her pistols at Sabretooth. Now you can see there's 1 damage there. She actually got 3 through, and she gets to reroll because he's holding objectives. So with the reroll she got 3 hits through. He blocked none of it, so exceptional healing had to be played to stop Sabretooth getting dazed and dropping that cube fragment. So he spent, any character with healing factor can use this card, he has healing factor. You spend 3 and you reduce the amount of damage taken to 1. So instead of 3 damage, down to 1, burning a good card, but it was the only way to make sure he wouldn't die this turn. Mystique activated and double moved long, although not fully the second long move, to position herself on this vault here within 1. Didn't do anything else. She technically could have used the deception card on Drax because there's no allies nearby, but she doesn't really want Drax the Destroyer getting close to her, so there was no need to do it right now. And remember, she does not gain power via her affiliation bonus for just being near the vault. It's only the cube fragments that will generate power. Simple enough turn for Gamora next. She medium moved and then had her movement reduced in order to climb on top of the newsstand there in order to pick up the cube fragment for her 1 power that was up there. So that's all she could do, and she's nowhere near the vault, so she isn't helping secure any. Wolverine hopped down from his car, medium move, in order to pick up the cube fragment that was there, and then medium moved again to just get within 1 of the Cosmic Vault on this side. So I just leave Cyclops to go for the Brotherhood, but now it's over to either Drax or Ronin for the Guardians. So of those two, it was Ronin who went first. He moves medium, so he did so, and his options were to move medium again and just contest the vault, or to fire his universal weapon and hope for a push, which would mean that Wolverine would be away and that neither of them would score either way, plus some damage. So he went with the universal weapon play, sadly no wilds, and as a result no push, so Wolverine is still scoring that vault, but he did damage with his universal weapon attack, so that does shock, which Wolverine is not immune to, and 2 damage. And getting ahead on damage when the cube fragments are in play, given that they hurt in the power phase, isn't a bad thing. So Cyclops activated, last activation for the Brotherhood this turn. He just double medium moved over to where Mystique is next to that vault there. He couldn't get close enough to grab the last cube fragment on the table, so the thinking there was, at least if he's next to a vault, he has the chance to generate power. And Cyclops isn't that great unless he can get fed power in a way that doesn't kill him, so the vaults are the next best option potentially. And for Drax, he just medium moved twice as well, once to get the cube fragment, and then rather than face down Cyclops and Mystique, he pivoted and headed towards the middle, sensing weakness. So that does take us to the end of battle round 1, so we're going to do the scoring, and then we're also going to incorporate the vaults paying out at the same time, even though it does happen in the power phase. So that the scoring does still happen first. That's important because it involves a push which could potentially stop someone securing it anymore, but that happens after points. So at the end of battle round 1, the Guardians of the Galaxy have 2 of the potential 5 cube fragments for 2 victory points, and they only held 1 of the vaults. Star-Lord held this one, although it did empower him and push him away small, but it does give him 2 power as well. But again, the scoring happens first, so that was another point there. And that puts them at 3 at the end of battle round 1. The Brotherhood did much better. They have the other 3 cube fragments, so 3 victory points right there, and they hold this vault, they hold this vault, and they hold that vault, and Mystique got empowered by it and also pushed back, so she's basically right underneath that tree, but unfortunately Cyclops did not. So with that, we are going into battle round 2. The Brotherhood are keeping first activation. They are leading 6 versus 3. So was Sabretooth to get the turn started. However, I did forget to mention, so just for clarity's sake, everybody who is holding a cube fragment gained 1 additional power in the power phase, but also took 1 damage. So Sabretooth was 1 hit away from death when he began his turn as the first activation for this turn. He spent 3 power on Weapon X program just to do a bit of damage before he ran away. Wolverine or Sabretooth can spend 3 to play this card. They are thrown small and don't suffer collision damage if they collide with terrain or a person. So he flung himself into Drax. Drax didn't do too well with his dodge roll and took 2 damage, and then Victor double moved in order to get to the far side of here. He did also draw Drax's ire, so he has the vengeance token now from Drax, and he healed 1 at the end of his turn, so he is still sitting on, he's back down to 4, yeah, because the cube fragment put him at 5 of 6, now he's down to 4. Nebula was first up for the Guardians of Battle Round 2, and she wanted to to hit, to track down, well I guess she also hit him, to track down Sabretooth and finish him off. She moved forwards along on top of the car there and shot her blaster pistol at him again. Did 3 damage, only needed to do 2. He is dazed, he's dropped his objective token, but she cannot pick up because she's not allowed to pick up objectives. But he has dropped it at least. Her turn is technically not over, that's her 2 actions, but she is playing Lovable Misfits. So this is the fun, the best part of playing Guardians. This is the fun card where they can all spend 1, you roll a die, and depending on the result you get, a bunch of different stuff can happen. So we're going to go resolve that now and be back in a second. So the Lovable Misfits card has been played and resolved. Nebula and Drax both rolled a shield, which allows them, or a blank, they have the same effect. They can immediately advance small. So Drax has moved to there, that's the roll he had. Nebula has moved over there with her advance, and that's her turn properly over now. Ronin got a hit, which lets him, any enemy within 3 holding or contesting an objective takes 1 damage. So he 1 damaged Wolverine. And then Gamora rather, got a wild, which lets her do a 0 cost attack or to generate 2 power. She opted to generate 2 power because there was no one within range. Star-Lord unfortunately got a skull, because of course he did. Him and anyone within 2, which was Gamora, suffers stun. So in situations where they would gain more than 1 power, they gain only the 1. But still, a pretty okay result, I think. So in order to stop Drax snatching up the cube fragment that Sabretooth dropped, Toad had to activate. He was not within 2, so his first action was to move closer, so he was. He fired out his tongue, snatched up the cube fragment, and is now holding 2, so he's going to take 2 damage at the end of the turn, and generate 2 power. He then retreated for his other action rather than attacking, to try and get him outside of double attacks from Drax. I think Drax can still probably move in and potentially, well, he needs to get within 2. Yeah, I think he can. He can probably hit him once, which might be enough, but at least with pulling back there, he won't get double attacked, and Sabretooth is obviously going to be very angry and power laden when he comes back next turn as well. Ronin was next up for the Guardians, and he moved forwards medium to put himself in contesting range of this vault. He then spent 4 power on Kree Justice, his massive 8 energy attack that stuns and staggers, although Wolverine is immune to stun, but either way, as long as it does damage, it does stats effects. It would have staggered him, but it doesn't matter, it did 4 damage. Wolverine only had 2 or 3 health left, I think it was 3. Either way, Wolverine is also stunned, so the 2 healing factors on the table are not getting an activate. Well, Sabretooth did activate. Wolverine ain't getting a turn though, and he dropped his Q fragment, which was then picked up for 1 power by Ronin, so he's now holding a Q fragment and holding the vault, and this is where the turnaround starts to happen. Cyclops activated and moved medium, so he was between the tree and the statue here in order to get in range of Drax, fired his basic attack at him and did really well with the roll, did 3 damage to Drax, which was exactly enough to daze him. Drax presumably still gets to give out his vengeance token and has done that, and also dropped the cube fragment he was holding, and Cyclops had enough power to pay to pick it up. So unfortunately Cyclops has snatched that from Drax. Drax won't be doing anything else for now, so it's over to Gamora or Star-Lord. Star-Lord activated next, and he did not have a great turn, but it began by playing Crew of the Milano, so any Guardians of the Galaxy can play this, or spend 1 rather when this is played. They remove all special conditions and can't suffer any more for the round. So he and Gamora both played 1 to get rid of their stun, just because stun is annoying. Then he went full auto with his element guns on Cyclops. Cyclops countered with quick draw, so if that's an attack outside 2, instead of rolling whatever his normal defense would be, he rolls 5. And if, as a result, the attack doesn't do any damage, he hits them for 2. Now, first one got through with a good enough roll because full auto was a lot of dice. Still only did 1 though, because Cyclops' 5 defense dice was pretty good, although it cost him 2 power. So 1 wild as well, so he is bled, which is pretty bad when you're holding a cube fragment. Then he just tried a basic attack, which is only 5 energy dice as opposed to full auto, which was 7, 6, 7, 8, something like that. Cyclops once again quick drawed on that, and he blocked all the damage, so Star-Lord managed to damage himself for 2, because Cyclops dodged his shots and shot him back. So he did nothing else. Can't say that was particularly great, which is a shame. So Mystique activated, she moved for her first action to the far side of that vault, and then interacted with it, for 1 power presumably, with her leadership ability. So it's secure objective token, place a token on this objective. While this token is in play, you are securing the objective. Remove it if an enemy character ever contests the objective. So if a Guardian gets within 2 of that, it immediately evaporates and is no longer secured. But that's being secured right now, So Mystique was then able to move along again, and she's moved all the way down here, presumably eyeing up this vault. And because of all the daisies, it is now just over to Gamora to end battle round 2. So Gamora moved down from the building for her first activation. She then spent 2 power on Assassin's Leap. She flung herself into Mystique for 2 damage, and then for her other actual action she had to move medium again to get back in to claim this vault, just to try and scrape together some points. And with that we're going into the cleanup phase, and once again we'll also just be handling the portals, pushing people back at the same time. So that was a very bloody round 2, and a lot of damage being dealt out as well by the cube fragments, of course, and Toad took 2 because he's holding 2 of the cube fragments. But to be specific about the points, oh actually, we'll cover the vaults real quick. Nobody got pushed back from them, and also nobody gained any power from them as a result. So, for the Guardians, they have 2 cube fragments, one on Gamora and one on Ronin, that he stole from Wolverine, so that's 2 victory points there. And this turn they held 2 of the vaults. Ronin held this one, and Gamora right at the end of the turn there held that one, giving them 4 and taking them to 7 in total. The Brotherhood are holding 3 cube fragments, one on Cyclops that he took from Drax, one on Toad, and then the other one he took that was dropped by Sabretooth, so they got 3 victory points from that. And they're holding the back vault, and they're holding this vault here because of Toad, because Sabretooth was dazed. So they gained, what was it, that was 3, 4, 5 victory points, taking them up to 10 I think. So as we go into battle round 3, the Brotherhood is still going first, and they have got a sizable lead on the Guardians. So Wolverine got battle round 3 started. He started with a best at what I do, which is a move incorporating an adamantium slash, and wilds count as 2 successes. Appalling roll for his attack, it did nothing. So then he did a berserker barrage. He was burning through all the power he was sitting on from getting beaten up, and it did manage to do damage. It did 2. Actually, I think it might also bleed. If it does, we'll correct that in a second. So Ronin spent 2 to counter that by judging Wolverine by saying he is too mean to be Canadian, so he has a judgment marker now as well. Nebula activated and did a shock sword assault on Toad, which also involves being moved within 1 after completing it. It only did 1 damage. Toad did very well with his defense, and as a result opted not to slip away because he's still holding the vault, and the assumption was Sabretooth will just deal with Nebula. For her other action though, she did a basic strike and did much better with the roll, and again keep in mind she was getting rerolls on all this because Toad is holding objectives. She did 3 damage to him, so he is dazed. Also the shock sword assault would have stunned him, but it doesn't matter now obviously because he's dazed. He dropped his 2 cube fragments, which Nebula cannot pick up, so they had to be placed within 2 of Toad. So one has been placed there, one has been placed there, just so Sabretooth can't grab both of them unless he's willing to waste his entire turn. So knowing that they want to keep the point lead ahead as much as possible to potentially win next turn, Victor Creed did activate, and he did just use his moves to both snatch up both cubes for, well, technically he gets a refund on one of them because of a leadership ability, but also so that he's contesting, or rather, sorry, he's claiming the vault there because Nebula does not count as contesting. So Drax would have to move in to make it a no score. It's not likely anyone else can move in to make it a score for the Guardians, because Victor is on his wounded side. Well, actually no, Drax is on his wounded side as well. Yeah, so I don't think there's any avoiding that. Either way, it is back over to one of the Guardians now. So Star-Lord activated and had a pretty fun turn. He used extreme conditioning, so he spends 2 and gets movement long for his movement, putting him right smack dab in Cyclops' face, where he then went full auto with his element guns, saying dodge this, and then an expletive I can't repeat. So he did 3 damage, which unfortunately is not enough to daze Cyclops. He's alive on 1 health, but the roll that got through, 3 wilds, so he gets to apply 3 stats effects. So now, along with bleeding, Cyclops is stunned, slowed, and shocked, slowed, and stunned as well. It's a shame they didn't have the Children of the Atom card or whatever it is, where you just absorb stats effects and gain power if you're immune. That would have been real good for him there. So Cyclops activated as a tactical play, and he got rid of his bleed for his first action. Then for his second, he retreated small because of the slow. So you can see he's still got 3 stats effects, 4 if you count Drax's ire, and stopped there. Now he's already dead because he's holding a cube fragment and it will damage him and kill him, or rather daze him I should say. But that does happen after scoring. So his reason for retreating is that if he can get that point, he's at least done something before dropping the cube fragment at the start of turn 4. Gamora might be able to get her. Drax can if he's willing to ignore Sabretooth. It's tough to say if that's the best play or not, but either way, over to Guardian of the Galaxy next. So there is usually a moment in every game where it becomes apparent that that's probably the point at which it's decided, and it could be Drax's turn right now. He moved so that he was within 2, he's at the tree there, so he's within 2 of Cyclops. He did his Blades attack, he only needed to do 1 damage, and he was getting 3 extra dice because of the Vengeance token that was on Cyclops. And as you can tell by the lack of damage, in the roll of 6, or how many dice was he rolling by default? It was 5 dice for his basic attack, plus the 3 extra. All of those dice, 5, 6, 7, 8 dice, got 3 through, and Cyclops is rolling 4 against physical attacks, and he fully blocked it, so he took no damage, which is very significant, unfortunately, for the Guardians. So, it's over to... oh, it's only over to Mystique now, yeah. So Mystique activated next, as said, and she had a very Mystique-esque turn. She moved to roughly here with her first action, then played Deception. So she targets an enemy character within 4 that has no other non-dazed enemy characters within 2 of it, which in this case was Gamora, and then you advance it... oh, it's actually you advance its speed, sorry I misread that and thought it was advanced 2, so actually Gamora is medium move, so she should be like there-ish, or is she long move? No, she's long move, so actually she's going to be like there, and then for her other actual action, Mystique snuck past her and went to the vault. Now Gamora hasn't activated, so she can just move right back. But that does waste an action, which could have otherwise been 2 attacks on Mystique. So a very, very cunning subterfuge there with the use of the Deception card. It's actually better than I thought it was, because you move the character at their speed. So yeah, it's pretty incredible. So Gamora responded by having to move back into position on the far side of the vault. She then did an Assassin's Leap for 2 power into Mystique again. This time it did just 1 damage. And then for her other actual attack, she tried just her basic attack with Godslayer, and sadly did no damage. So they're both on their healthy side, so no one is claiming that vault, and it doesn't look like that's going to change, although we do still have to go over to Ronin, but he wants to claim that vault, so he's going to have to shove Wolverine away, otherwise it's a... no wait, Wolverine is on his wounded side, so it is not a draw. Either way though, he's going to try and hurt Wolverine. So Ronin suffered a spot of bad luck there. He did his universal weapon for the massive amount of power it cost, 8 energy dice. It did literally nothing, and that was with a little bit of a good defense roll, but mostly just an appalling attack roll. So then he just did his basic weapon attack. Sorry, no, he did the Kree, whatever, what is it called? It's called Kree something. That's his big attack. Kree superiority. Either way, then he did his universal weapon, which managed to get through with exactly 1 wild. So the 1 wild pushes Wolverine back and does 1 damage and shock. And that does take us to the end of Battle Round 3. So at the end of Battle Round 3, that was not very good for the Guardians. 2 massive whiffs there from Drax and Ronin, which they really needed to be clutch with. Either way though, the Guardians have 2 of the cube fragments, and they only hold 1 portal, which is the one Ronin is on, because Mystique and Gamora are countering each other. They're both on their healthy side. So they only gained 3 victory points, putting them up to the 10. The Brotherhood though, they are holding 2 vaults because Nebula doesn't contest, so Sabretooth's got that one, and that one over there has the objective secured that they can put down from their leadership ability, and they have 3 cube fragments. No, they have 2, sorry, yes, they have 3, but Cyclops has now dropped it because in the power phase of turn 4 he is dazed, so he's not getting a turn, but that did score for 3, putting them at 15. They've scored 5 points every turn. They only need to score 1 to win, so it's basically impossible to stop them. But we are still going to play Battle Round 4 just to see if maybe the Guardians can take some of them out. So what will definitely be the last battle round did not get off to a good start for the Guardians, trying to save face. Wolverine activated and did a best at what I do to leap back into combat with him. And this time the Adamantium Slash doing extra attacks on Wilds, plus he was wounded prior to his turn ending. Did more like the damage you would expect. Just did a casual 7 damage. Dazing Ronin. He then also spent 1 power to pick up the cube fragment that Ronin was holding. So he's now holding a cube fragment and holding that vault. He'd had nothing else to do with his other actions, so he cleared his shock. Sorry, I forgot that when Ronin is dazed, he can kick in the Accuser roll, which lets him do a move and then an attack for free, as long as he has the power to pay for it. So he did his Kree Justice. Justice was the word I was forgetting about before I called it Kree Superiority. He did it on Wolverine. I want to show you the roll for it. Here's the roll for it. He got 2, which Wolverine has blocked out of 8 dice. Good for him, Ronin. Good for him. Simple move for Drax, he only had really one thing to do. He positioned himself so he's claiming that vault, which got rid of the objective secured marker that the Brotherhood put on it. He paid 1 power to pick up the cube fragment that the dazed Cyclops dropped, and could do nothing else with his turn, so he is done. And now it's over to Toad, Sabretooth or Mystique. Mystique activated and spent 6 power across 2 espionage attacks for 3 each, which do stun automatically. The first one whiffed on damage because Gamora defended against it, although it still would have stunned her. The second one did exactly 2 damage, which plus the 3 she has on her is enough to stun her. Sorry, daze her. She had stun as well, but it doesn't matter. She's dazed and will not be getting a turn. She's not contesting that vault. And Mystique then picked up the cube fragment she dropped, which this turn is not going well for the Guardians. It's only Nebula and Star-Lord left, and Nebula can't contest anything. So yeah. So Star-Lord didn't like that. He moved in medium to go after Mystique and to contest here. He's actually supposed to be a little bit further up. He slipped down, so it looks like he's bonking Mystique on the head with his pistol, which would have been more effective than trying to shoot her, which is what he did, because it did no damage, because he whiffed the attack roll. He is contesting and he is healthy though, so that's a draw on that one now, but again, it doesn't really matter. And if Nebula goes down now, it is game over. Yep, it's over. Sabretooth did a No Mercy Savage Predator, so for every damage on him he adds dice to his next attack, so that was 2 dice on top of the normal. Actually didn't do that well considering the number of dice he was rolling against her, but it did exactly enough to daze her because she's on her healthy side. So that does take her out. There's no one left to activate for the Guardians, so that is the end of the 4th battle round, and indeed the game. So yep, just to clean this up officially, the Guardians scored 2 victory points, 1 for a cube fragment and 1 for the vault that Drax is holding by himself. The Brotherhood scored 6, I think. They've got 3 cube fragments, because no, sorry, they've got 4 because Mystique grabbed 1. Mystique has 1, Wolverine has 1, and Sabretooth has 2, so that's 4. And then they hold 2 vaults, yes, for 6 points, because Wolverine has that one and Sabretooth has that one, because Nebula doesn't interfere. So that's 6, putting them at 21 and the Guardians at 12. So I think by and large the Guardians of the Galaxy are probably considered the weakest affiliation in Crisis Protocol. Never had a good showing on the table. They've had individual moments of brilliance at times, and there was a lot of dodgy rolls here, like Ronin the Accuser not being able to hurt Wolverine on 8 dice is just embarrassing. And of course Drax going point blank into Cyclops' face over there in turn 3 and doing nothing when he needed to do 1 damage, and it would have swung a difference of 2, because if he'd taken out Cyclops, well, he still wouldn't have been able to move in that turn. It would have made a swing of 1, and then Cyclops would have been alive in turn 4, which may have made a difference on its own, so I can't actually say that would have changed anything. Ronin going toe-to-toe with Wolverine for basically the whole game was fun, but in general, I don't know, the Guardians of the Galaxy are in a weird place. Star-Lord I just don't think is good, and you need to bring him to be Guardians of the Galaxy, even though the affiliation bonus isn't that great, because it relies on you bringing tactics cards that you don't actually want to play, and the tactics cards did get played. The only one they had left was, I think they had Medkit and Reversal left over. Medkit would have had a use had Gamora not completely gone down, but that's the way it goes. So this was definitely funner than I remember the last couple of showings of the Guardians of the Galaxy being. Maybe like this, there was an attempt at a different setup that didn't have Rocket and Groot to see if that made any difference to their general performance. And obviously this isn't hyper competitive or anything, but still, they're in a bad place. Individually I think they can be great, except maybe Star-Lord and maybe Drax. Gamora was great last time she was on the table as part of A-Force. I mean, she got beat up at the start, but then once she has power on her, she's fantastic. And Ronin, he's done great stuff in the past, and he should have done great stuff in this match. It was just statistically against him for the role where it was literally, 6 blanks and 2 hits. He had 2 appalling rolls that were just statistically improbable. But anyway, we're not here to do super analysis on this or anything. This is for fun. Hope you enjoyed either way, and we'll see you again in the future. The Inhuman releases have been delayed to who knows when for Europe and the UK, so still can't show you them, which is a shame because I'm looking forward to them. But hey, sometime in the future hopefully. Until next time though, thanks for watching. Ta-ta for now.